Welcome back to our second part of our meeting with Mr. Ambassador of Germany. I appreciate us being back here, and I appreciate you taking more time with us. And I will follow up from last week with German-Norwegian relations.
Mm-hmm.
So I will ask, what fields does Norway and Germany cooperate most within international relations?
That's actually a good question in a sense, because I'm asking myself actually, where do we not cooperate? So that probably would be easier to find an area, policy area, where we do not cooperate, and that I have difficulties to come to one now. So no, and actually it's a very, very broad and very, very good cooperation and relationship. We do have, of course, we are allies in NATO. We are partners in the internal market, although Norway is not a real member, a full member, whatever, 3/4 member of the EU. By being together in the internal market, also the economic relations are very, very close. Of course, again, not unnatural for Germany and Norway. Energy is a big issue where we cooperate. Not only that we buy gas, this is the old traditional partnership, but also we are more and more also working together in development of renewable energy and framework setting for the Green Deal, where Norway will be part of the European Green Deal. So that is something where there are a lot of opportunities also to work together there. Multilateralism, generally speaking, the way and find multilateralism as a way of operating in politics and also as a way of finding solutions for common challenges and problems. There, of course, Norway is one of our best partners. What I would actually say is we cooperate throughout the whole spectrum of policy areas, and the cooperation is excellent. Very often, same perception of problems, same idea about possible solutions, same way of operating. In that sense, if I can say something which is not so perfect, if you want.
Yeah.
No, but
how
that
can you improve as well?
Yeah, but that is actually one thing, is that there is in almost each and every of these areas there is potential for even deeper. So it's not better, not improving, not better, but it's for deeper and more substantial cooperation. So there is potential which we need to identify, not only identify, but also we need to probably make use of more. And I think that is if you want to say, the only thing where we can do things differently. We could do things differently is use the potential that in almost every policy area exists of doing things, even more things together. Not always easy, because of course partners and established partnerships and it's not always automatically when you run into a problem or face challenge that you think about the other country as possible partner for a solution. But that is something which I would say, and I'm working on here, is to make this kind of as a automatic reflex for people fall to say, okay, let's think about Norway or let's think about Germany and the other way. If we have this kind of problem, challenges we're facing. So that is the only thing I would say can be improved, in quotation marks, because it's more deeper and more frequent cooperation.
Of course, but is it some way to improve? Then we gotta know how to improve, and that's a just perfect thing to say, because then we can work even harder to get the perfect relationship, as we of course would like with Germany. So that's the areas we would like to improve, which are of course very interesting these days. into another topic, which is a quite thing that a lot of Norwegian students wonder about, is that we all Norwegian students learn about the Second World War from a very, very early age, almost from when we were 6 years old. And I would like to ask you, Mr. Ambassador of Germany, how do you teach German students about both the First as well as the Second World War?
It's a good question, because there you can also, if you ask about both wars, come out with a different approach to both. If you start with the First World War, chronologically, this is taught more as kind of normal history, because although from the point of view of today, the people acting on the run-up to the First World War were behaving and were making judgments in a way that today, of course, would be totally unacceptable, but at the time of imperial politics and imperialism, their behavior was, for the time, more or less normal. So this, of course, you can always discuss who bears more responsibility for the outbreak of the First World War, and there's certainly a good deal of the responsibility, not all of it, but a good deal of it lies with Germany and German politicians in the run-up of the war. But again, still that is more normal history in that sense. Second World War, totally different issue. The Second World War has been conceived as a crime from the very beginning, and that is actually also the approach Germany, in how Germany this is is treated in schools and taught in schools, and is extensively treated. And there, because it's a history of crime, and it's a history of how this crime could be made possible, how does this to try and to big focus on education is not about just what happened and what did Hitler do and what did he not do, but the thing is, how could a civilized society suffer from this total breakdown of decency? Because again, the main criminals were the Nazis, but most other people knew. So there is not this kind of claim, we didn't know and things. So this is just not, as we would know today from all this research, cannot be sustained. So people knew. And so how could this happen in a society like that, rather civilized society, that this kind of path to a war, path of sinking into criminality how could this happen, and what can we actually, that the idea from all this is trying to learn how this happened and how if it can try to prevent that things like that ever happen. So, and in the pedagogical approach, or didactical approach, and this is actually very much on trying to work out or come out with this lines and what are the root causes, what happened, what's behind, how can this, what did go wrong already in the 20s and in the 30s, so that it in the end somebody like Hitler could have 90% plus support of the people, which of course all these elections or vote polling things that would happen were of course not totally free, but even if it's not 98 or 89%, but there were a large majority actually supported him. So how could that happen? Because again, trying to elaborate, to come out, work out structures behind this breakdown of civilization and breakdown of sense of decency, which made the reign of terror and the reign of the criminals actually possible. Because the idea behind that is that the next challenge, danger for democracy and human rights, and it will not be man with a funny beard and an Austrian accent, but what are the structural reasons behind that breakdown? So that is something which is very much in the center of the education and how the Second World War is taught, analyzed, and or the run-up also to the Second World, the regime is taught, analyzed in school in Germany.
And it's of course has one of the reasons in the Great Depression. And now with COVID-19 hitting, as I said in the former interview, it's many thoughts about a new Great Depression, a new Great Recession, economic problems in different aspects. Are you afraid or any way of concern that it may become some either left-sided or right-sided movements due to a maybe economic crisis?
Yes and no. Of course, I think because of this, what I just tried to describe, I think large parts of the German population are not immune, but are rather well vaccinated against this kind of extremism. And but of course, if you go deeper in Germany, surveys made, questions asked that could then given an indication of people's attitude toward things that you could describe as extremism or right extremism. There are about stable 20% that show in this kind of surveys and polls show attitudes that are at least given kind of an inclination to extremist or also extremist and conspiracy theories and things like this. That about 20% is stable. So I would say it's not a danger at the moment, but it's something to be watched, something to be aware of, and something also to try to counter again with more countering fake news and disinformation. All that is a permanent task because, again, generally speaking, I would say society is well equipped against falling into extremists as a whole, so falling into extremism again, but there are elements, and of course, as elsewhere too, we do have once in a while our acts of extremism and things like, at the moment I would say Germany is right-wing extremism, which is the main danger. And generally, is democracy in danger? No, I wouldn't say it.
What is the single biggest threat against Germany today, both foreign and domestic? I would actually say, be honest, threat actually, what was really threatening our way of life and the way we used to live and we wanted to live, could be climate change and its effects in the end. I think that is probably, if you ask about the single most threat, then it's climate change. All the others, more pure or classic security policy challenges, are better manageable. Then it seems at the moment climate change is manageable. In that sense, would you say that Germany are more safe against threats or huge change that may inflict your country badly than any time before?
That is a I would, on the other side, it was a dangerous thing to say because it makes you complacent if you think about that. Nothing can happen to us. Of course, that's not true. I think we are well equipped, better equipped in the future, and probably also in that sense safer than we used to be for quite a long time. I think if you look at the Cold War in the sense of this, nothing happened, fortunately, but it was always, very often it was the brink of things escalating, and so that I don't see in that sense now, but yeah, probably. But we are safe and nothing can happen to us. That is very dangerous and makes us, as I said, makes us complacent. And that is not a very good idea. And as I said, climate change is something that nobody is safe from. So it will have different effects in different parts of the world, but none of us is safe from that.
Right. It's a threat to not just one country, it's a threat to all of us.
It's a global threat. Different.
Which means we need cooperation all across the globe, not just within Europe or within the United States, but across the globe. Mm-hmm. So, in contrast with the rest of the Western civilization, Germany and their economy has seen a growth since the year 2008. It's a lot of economic crisis, especially from the Second World War to today, that has seen where Germany has come out as a kind of winner when other countries have declined economically. You have increased. Why is it that Germany often comes good out after some huge economic crisis compared to other countries?
One thing it's not, and that's very important to say, it's not the genes. So no, it has nothing to do with the Germans being more clever or something else. No, that's certainly not. I think we are in a way lucky, and of course then luck also has to be combined with some kind of competence and skills. But yes, we were into one thing already, which is a very skilled workforce, an education system that actually also still, also there is criticism, but still is very much produces people that are well equipped for professional life through all spheres, be it academic, be it crafts, be it industries, or people are actually well equipped through the education and training they receive for that. That is one thing. Of course, we do have, and that's history in that sense, that once you have a good industrial basis, and it is an advantage. The one disadvantage this can have, that you don't renew it. That is something, fortunately, we have not done. We haven't fallen in that trap, so that is also one of the reasons that the industrial basis, the industrial infrastructure is rather modern, not so that, and of course it is geography, lying the center, the heart of Europe, also helps. So there are different factors, but of course it's always, nothing of that is granted, and apart from the geography which is there, is always, but everything else, you have to see that you don't lose it and that you win it. For every generation you have to win that again, and of course we also have huge investments to make in digitization and the infrastructure, modern infrastructure, in a sense that it's not only roads and trains anymore, but digital infrastructure. So there, I think we have our challenges, but so far, we managed with the good industrial and educational basis. I think we have.
Why is this happening every time? Because you can see other nations that got their ports, their seaports, which are the biggest trade income in the country. Germany has Hamburg, of course, but it's still not a lot of sea around Germany. You got a lot of roads in the middle of in the heart of Europe, but you still are the country that always or almost always has the greatest industry in the world. It's not just jeans. I believe in that, but still, it's got to be something. What is the secret?
As I said, there is no secret. It's a combination of favorable factors. Favorable factors that has nothing to do with us, and some that actually are made by society in a sense. Favorable factor is a climate that actually is rather favorable. The geographical position is in the heart of Europe, is favorable. The infrastructure, okay, that has been built up through centuries basically, and then also the mental or intellectual infrastructure that also has been built up through centuries, that helps us to cope with the crisis probably sometimes better than others. But again, I would say a jury is still out whether this will be like that in all eternity. So there's no guarantee that if you, as I said already, if you don't make the right investments in time, in all that those favorable factors you have, you will lose some, and then you will come out, or you look much less blessed than before. So it is a constant investment that you need to make.
But after the Second World War, you were ruined, or at least almost 100% ruined. How did you manage to rebuild that fast and actually come out on the world stage economically so fast, even though your country were, as I said, ruined?
I think we got some good starting help.
Marshall
Plan was one of the reasons. Although it had to be paid back, but again, to start, it was a very good help to set things up. In a way, probably also at the time, as a lot of infrastructure was destroyed, at least during the 50s and 60s and also 70s, Germany had rebuilt infrastructure, so it has a very modern had a very modern infrastructure. Also sometimes, and another thing probably actually is people that were always there, skilled workforce that was there. It didn't disappear just because the buildings were in ruins. People's heads were still there. And something else probably that's happened in people, but that's what has happened in people's heads is to leave the war behind. People just wanted to rebuild and threw themselves into work and rebuilding because they wanted to forget, which is not 100% positive aspect, if you want to say so. People wanted to forget, let this war, the Nazi regime and all this time behind themselves, and as I said, threw themselves into rebuilding.
Absolutely, it's incredible how we managed, especially in West Germany in the beginning, but later on in East Germany as well. Germany are, of course, known for the great commitment to almost everything they do. But I'm also thinking about sports, where you actually has, and I quote, the most successful national football team ever. Not due to all World Cup victories, but due to all medals in World Cup history. What is your secret behind doing that?
If you look at the discussion in Germany at the moment about our national team, most people would be very surprised if they call it the best national team in history. But of course, we do have the best football team in the world at the moment, but that is Bayern München, but that's a different story. The national team, now, seriously, there is not that much of a secret. If you can think about something, why it's a very, very broad base, and just especially in football, a very, very broad base, and people of organized football in Germany. The German Football Association is Germany's by far biggest NGO, if you want to say so. So that is, and there are millions of organized football players, and also that gives you a very, very broad basis for talent scouting and things like that. That is, it's just, and that also probably is actually, if you want, it's the secret, is the sheer mass of people you can look at, finding talents and promoting talents, bringing them up. And then, of course, also a certain infrastructure for those, most clubs, even those, the most remote village club has a sort of decent infrastructure to where people can train and play and things like that. That also plays a big role. I think, again, there is, it's not much else, and of course football is taken seriously in Germany.
Compared to other sports like latest years, biathlon and other sports.
Also taken seriously, but there are much smaller group of people.
Compared to previous times, at least. But you got Brazil, you got England, you got countries that dies for football. It's only one sport, and it's football. Still, it's Germany. Like you say, it's because of your population. It's because you can see the talents. But it's still all the other countries in the world that focus exactly on the same thing. And Brazil has 200 million people more than Germany in their population. Still, it's Germany, and they're actually very much on the top of the history in the medals.
But I won't be able to come up with another secret. Otherwise, if I told the secret, it would be shot, because then we wouldn't be successful. Everybody else would know. No, that's not.
I understand that. Yeah, but it's an interesting topic, because again, it's the biggest sport in the world, not just a sport. It's the biggest. And over to something else. As we know, there are a lot of German heritage in Norway. Some of that is my grandparents, but it's also a lot of others in Norway. And I would like to ask you, is there something you would like to say to these German Norwegians within their situation right now?
Oh, I think it's not the worst place in the world to live is Norway, so probably it was a good choice. And but on the other hand, of course, I would always say, don't forget your roots and don't forget your heritage. It is also something which is a very valuable thing to bear, if you to have in yourself, if you have benefit of being able to live with two more cultures united in one person. That is actually, as I find this as a huge advantage and a huge kind of enrichment for a person. So don't forget it. Be good Norwegians, but don't forget your German heritage.
What is the main thing they should be proud of when they think about their heritage?
I would actually say there is no state prescription of what you should be proud of. That's something you will have to define and find yourself. What is important for yourself to be proud of. In that, what you be proud of, that you come from, and what is inside you, and what makes you. That is something you have to decide. So there are many things you can be proud of, but there is no such thing where you say that if you have German roots, you have to be proud of that. No, it's something you will have to find yourself.
You got a huge culture, so I believe it's a lot to think about. To my last political question, Angela Merkel's term is over this year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's Anna Solberg, Norwegian Prime Minister as well, we don't know. Europe has seen Angela Merkel as the Queen of Europe, even though it's another queen. We in Britain we think about Merkel as the most powerful person in Europe, and now she will probably leave office this fall. Which major change has Merkel done, and which change will Europe see when Merkel now is putting up the boots and finishing off?
I think Angela Merkel most likely will not be remembered for any particular specific spectacular change she made. Probably she will be remembered for contributing at least a big deal to holding Europe together, and she will be remembered for crisis management, as we have to say now. This is financial crisis, Greek crisis, Euro crisis, COVID crisis, Ukraine crisis. I didn't call this the permanent state of crisis management, which I think she actually, if I may say so, excelled to a certain extent, and I think she will be most remembered. And what will be the biggest change now she's gone? Well, she will be gone. She's not gone. She's still there, fortunately. Yeah, others will have to learn to take her place, which will not be easy. But again, if I remember, when she came to office, what people thought about her. I still remember, old enough also still to remember when Helmut Kohl became Chancellor, and what people said about him. They both didn't have the best reputation in terms of their political skillfulness, and both provincial and whatever it will be called. So look at them. So that gives us hope that anybody else will come after her will also be able to grow, and the same. And let's hope that this, and we are, and we do hope that the saying is right, to whom God gives office, He also gives the skills.
What is the biggest challenges Germany faces after Merkel's term now?
In a way, that of course has nothing to do with her, or her leaving or not. It would be the same if she stayed. Yes, I think we do have to modernize and invest in our future, which means climate change, digitization. These are the things not only Germany's, but particularly Germany's biggest challenges to overcome in the future, where we need to take the necessary steps, implement the measures, invest to be ready for the 21st century, which may look rather different from the 20th. And I think if you say what the challenge is, I think our minds and the life around us is still very much 20th century, and that is something which we will have to in order to being able to make the necessary adjustments, investments. I think it's change of mind, and that is probably a difficult, or the most difficult challenge. To say that, to accept and that the challenges that we will face in the future, also in the near future already, will be different ones than the ones we were used to. to adapt to that and do the right things and take the right steps to tackle that.
Right.
That would be.
What is Angela Merkel's biggest accomplishment?
I would actually really say that there is still a European Union, a Eurozone, a Euro, and a European Union as without her and her moderation, in a sense, probably would have been. Of course, we don't know because we don't. Alternate history is difficult to tell because we just don't know. But that is something which could have been very different without her being at the place that she was.
She is a strong diplomat, as well as you, Mr. Ambassador. She is, and it's quite convenient that Joachim Löw, the football
Yes.
national manager of your national team, is hanging up his boots as well as Merkel. So it's kind of like the two biggest jobs in Germany that are will finish this upcoming summer or this upcoming fall.
It's a good picture.
Yeah.
No.
So the last question of this interview with you, is that we today have 500 Norwegian students, according to you, in Germany studying higher education. And my question is, why should Norwegian students study and promote higher education in Germany?
So, start with it's not because of the sun and not because of the surfing conditions, but because of everything else almost. So we have others too, but as I said, we have good universities because probably that's what we don't have is the big brand names like the Anglo-Saxon system, which has universities with have big names, but quality overall in Germany throughout universities is very good and is very high. So it's cheap in that sense because you don't pay. So that is, I would say, a big advantage. And also for Norwegians specifically, I would say German is not as difficult as you would think. So yes, it looks difficult, complicated, but for Norwegians it's not too complicated. So it's easier than you think to get in. And of course, professionally speaking, if you want, Germany, I can say that because it's the Norwegian government itself says that is very important for Norway. It's Norway's most important partner in Europe, at least, and so that is something.
In the world, I believe.
Okay, but it's different in governments. I wouldn't want to go into that, but at least in Europe it is. And having a German education, having studied there, having learned to understand Germany, how it works, how it functions, can be important for a career in Norway also. So this is something which people should think about. And it's actually, probably I'm a bit biased because of some, the last word for the potential Norwegian students in Germany, it's much more fun than you may think. There are a lot of things going on which are great fun there. So you just have to find out. And again, Germany is a big country in that sense. So find out. There are many corners of it that are worthwhile to be discovered. And again, it comes with also many universities that are worthwhile being discovered. And it's fun and it's useful.
What is the best thing about living in Germany?
Nowadays, I would actually say combination of very German things that you would actually always associate with Germany. The living standard, things work mainly. No? It's function, you get reliable services, and something which is not necessarily associated with Germany is actually that society and the way people live is rather relaxed today. That is something that is probably the biggest change, if you want to say, from that would you typically relate with Germany is discipline and people only working. No, this has fundamentally changed. So it's fun, but still a few things that actually are also very nice and useful to have. As I said, things are working and things are rather clean and not that many surprises in terms of what can happen. That still is there, combined with something new.
I appreciate so much your time with us. This was part 2 of our seminar with you, Mr. Ambassador. It's been an honor to come to your residence. Of course, you are Mr. Ambassador of Germany, so you have a schedule, and you took time to speak with us, which is a great honor for us. So it's a lot of appreciation from us, and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for coming. It was a pleasure for me. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure for us. Thank you.